All right, team. Strap in. We're going deep on data pipelines today.
Ooh, that sounds intense.
Can be, especially if, well,
If you're the one making the big decisions.
exactly. Like our listeners today, they're gearing up to choose a data lake platform.
Big choice, lots of factors at play.
For sure. And they've got big plans, NLP, machine learning, you name it.
The exciting stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But it can also be a little intimidating.
Especially if data science isn't, their bread and butter.
Exactly. So that's where we come in,
We're
right?
cutting through the jargon, giving them the info they need.
So they can confidently grill those vendors, get the right solution.
Love that approach.
Got to be tough on those vendors. But to guide us, we've got this awesome source.
Oh, yeah, I was reading that earlier. Really interesting.
Right. It's from an IT head who was literally in their shoes. Same dilemma.
Choosing between BigQuery, SnowFlake, DataBricks.
Yep, the big three. And they did a great breakdown of each one. So,
Perfect place to start.
okay, so BigQuery, got to be a contender, especially if they're already on Google Cloud.
Makes sense. Tight integration with all those Google tools, right?
Totally. And the thing that stood out to me was how well it plays with Google's AI and ML stuff.
Oh, yeah. If they're not super data science-y, that could be huge.
Absolutely. Less to learn, faster results, everyone's happy.
Agreed. So what's next? SnowFlake.
Right. SnowFlake, known for data warehousing, super flexible, multi-cloud.
Multi-cloud's hot these days.
For sure. But our source did hint, for the complex stuff, might need a bit more expertise.
Yeah, SnowFlake can be deceptively simple, then bam, you hit a wall.
And if you're building those intricate data pipelines, well,
You want someone who knows what they're doing.
exactly.
Okay.
And finally, DataBricks, the Apache Spark powerhouse.
If you need serious data crunching, that's your go-to.
For sure. But that learning curve,
It's steep, no doubt.
our source basically said, buckle up, it's a wild ride.
And you need the right people to navigate it.
Totally. Oh, in this source, they introduced me to something, a concept, data pipelines.
Data pipelines. I mean, it sounds kind of obvious, right?
Yeah, but I'd never really thought about it like this. They compared it to like a
Yeah.
conveyor belt.
Oh, I see. Raw data goes in, gets transformed, out pops valuable insights.
Exactly. But the complexity, it's all about the steps, the transformations, how intricate they are.
So simple pipeline, complex pipeline. Makes sense.
Let's break it down. What would a simple pipeline look like? Say, analyzing customer behavior.
Okay, so let's say you're pulling website traffic data, cleaning it up, removing the junks.
Making it all nice and tidy.
And then analyzing it to see what pages are popular, user journeys, that kind of stuff.
Pretty straightforward. I can picture that.
Right. Now imagine you want to add in demographics from your CRM.
Ah, so now we're pulling data from multiple places.
And it might not be formatted the same way.
More steps, more potential for things to go wrong.
Exactly. And suddenly, that simple pipeline's looking a lot more complex.
And that's why choosing the right tool for the job is crucial.
Oh, absolutely. Affects costs, implementation time, even the risk of errors.
Our source was adamant about this. Grill the vendors on their experience with pipeline complexity.
Good advice. It's like you wouldn't hire someone who's only built sheds to build a skyscraper.
Makes sense. So what are those killer questions about pipelines? The ones that separate the pros from the amateurs.
Well, first off, how comfortable are they with complex pipelines? Like, have they handled projects similar to yours?
Good one. What else?
Then, how do they approach data quality, data integrity throughout the pipeline? You want to make sure that data is clean and reliable at every step.
Makes sense?
Do they have good monitoring tools, optimization tools? You need to be able to track the performance of your pipelines and make adjustments as needed.
Monitoring is crucial. Anything else?
Security. How do they protect your data at every stage of the pipeline? This is especially important if you're dealing with sensitive customer information.
So many things to think about. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of data pipelines and grilling vendors, but how do we actually build these things? What tools and solutions do we need?
That's a great segue. Our source broke it down into 4 key components.
Ooh, I love a good framework.
Hit me with them.
Data ingestion, transformation, storage, and orchestration.
Okay, so data ingestion, that's bringing the data in, right? Like from our CRM, website analytics, social media, all that jazz.
Exactly. But it's not just a simple copy and paste. You need to consider things like data format, frequency of updates, and even security.
So what are our options? And how do they differ across BigQuery, SnowFlake, and DataBricks?
Well, let's use Google Cloud as our baseline, since our listeners are familiar with it.
Sounds good to me.
For ingesting data into cloud storage, you've got options like Cloud Storage Transfer Service for large one-time transfers, Dataflow for streaming and batch processing, and PubSub for real-time data streams.
Okay, that's a lot of options. What about Snowflake? How do they handle data ingestion? Snowflake heavily relies on its built-in connectors to pull data from various
So they
sources.
make it easy to connect to different systems.
Exactly. And they have this powerful tool called the copy command for loading data from different file formats.
Cool. And what about DataBricks?
DataBricks leverages something called Delta Live Tables for automated ingestion and orchestration.
Automated. I like the sound of that.
They rely heavily on Apache Spark for processing, but you can also use DataBricks notebooks for manual ingestion if needed.
Okay, that's a lot of technical jargon. Can we demystify data ingestion a bit? What does it actually mean in practical terms?
Sure, imagine filling a swimming pool. The pool is your data lake, and the water represents your data.
I'm with you.
Data ingestion is the process of getting that water into the pool, whether you use a hose, buckets, or a tanker truck.
Love that analogy. Now, we're dealing with different types of data. Structured data from our CRM, unstructured data from social media, and semi-structured data from web analytics. How do we manage all these different data flavors?
For structured data, tools like Cloud Storage Transfer Service for large transfers or BigQuery Data Transfer Service for scheduled transfers from applications like Salesforce or Google Analytics are good options.
Okay, those sound familiar. What about unstructured data like social media posts and images?
Cloud storage is your go-to for storing and accessing that type of data.
Makes sense. And Dataflow can help you process large volumes of it, right?
You got it. And what about that in-between zone, semi-structured data like JSON files?
Yeah, those can be tricky.
You can store those in cloud storage, and Dataflow can process them. But BigQuery can also analyze them, especially if you convert them into tables.
So we've got options for each data type. But considering you're working with a small to medium-sized data set, what are the key considerations for choosing the right ingestion methods?
For smaller data sets, simplicity is key. You don't need to overcomplicate things with super advanced tools.
Keep it simple, stupid, right?
Exactly. BigQuery Data Transfer Service or Cloud Storage Transfer Service can handle straightforward ingestion, but always consider scalability. If your data is expected to grow, Dataflow's ability to handle larger volumes might be a lifesaver.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between ease of use today and scalability for tomorrow.
Precisely. Now, I know a question that tends to trip people up. We've stored all this unstructured data in cloud storage. Can we actually search it using BigQuery? Can we use good old SQL for that?
That's a great question. BigQuery loves structured data, but can it handle unstructured data in cloud storage?
It can, but think of it like this. You need to add some structure to the unstructured data before BigQuery can understand it.
We're bringing order to the chaos.
Exactly. You can use tools like Dataflow or Cloud Functions to process that unstructured data.
Okay, so break it down for me. What does that processing involve?
It might involve extracting text from documents or analyzing images for metadata. Once you've extracted the relevant information, you can load it into BigQuery tables.
So we're turning it into structured data that BigQuery can handle.
Exactly. And then you can unleash the power of SQL to search and analyze that structured data.
That's starting to make sense. Now, let's move on to the next stage of our data pipeline journey, data transformation. Our source highlighted some key players: Google Cloud, Dataflow, Snowflake, and of course, DataBricks.
This is where we take that raw data and mold it into something useful. Think of it like refining crude oil into gasoline. You need to clean, process, and enrich the raw material to get a valuable end product.
And this is where things can get messy, right?
So absolutely. You might have missing values, duplicates, inconsistencies in data formats, even outliers that can skew your analysis.
So it's like cleaning up a really, really messy room.
Perfect analogy. That's all part of the data cleaning process. And then there's data transformation, which is all about converting the data into the format you need for your analysis.
So what are the tools we use to whip this data into shape?
For Google Cloud, Dataflow is your workhorse for data processing. But BigQuery itself is powerful for SQL-based transformation and analysis. They also have Data Fusion, which offers a visual interface for building ETL/ELT pipelines.
Okay, that's a lot of options. What about Snowflake?
Snowflake relies heavily on SQL for data cleaning, transformation, and analysis.
SQL seems to be the common thread here.
It is. Snowflake does have scripting capabilities for more complex transformations, but SQL is their bread and butter.
Got it. And DataBricks. What's their secret weapon for transforming data?
No surprises here. They turn to Apache Spark for its power and flexibility, but they also use SQL for querying and analyzing data. And their Delta Lake is great for managing data quality.
Okay, so SQL seems to be the universal language for data transformation. But I'm curious, how would you compare the learning curve for these different tool sets, especially for our listeners who are more comfortable with SQL than hardcore programming?
Great question. For someone comfortable with SQL, Snowflake is probably the easiest to pick up.
So Snowflake wins for ease of use.
In this case, yes. It's designed for accessibility and user-friendliness, especially for data transformation tasks.
That's great news for our SQL-savvy listeners. What about Google Cloud Dataflow? How steep is that learning curve?
It's a step up in complexity. You'll need some understanding of cloud concepts and data engineering principles to really harness its power.
So, a bit more of a challenge. And DataBricks. I'm already anticipating a steep climb.
You're not wrong. DataBricks, with its reliance on Apache Spark and Python or Scala programming, definitely has the steepest learning curve.
So it's the expert level option.
It is. It's incredibly powerful, but you'll need to invest time and effort to master it.
Okay, so for our listeners who are already familiar with Google Cloud and might not have a huge team of data scientists at their disposal, which tool would you recommend for data transformation?
Honestly, for their current needs and skill set, Snowflake might be the sweet spot. It's relatively easy to learn, especially for SQL users, and it can handle a wide range of transformation tasks.
So they could get up and running quickly with Snowflake.
Exactly. But we always have to think about the long game. What if their data needs grow significantly, or they decide to tackle more complex data science projects down the line?
Then what? Do they have to switch platforms?
Not necessarily, but it's where strategic thinking comes in. While Snowflake is great for today's needs, DataBricks' flexibility and power might be a better investment for the future.
So it's a classic trade-off. Ease of use now versus future-proofing for those bigger ambitions.
You got it. It's about finding the right balance for your organization's current reality and long-term vision.
That's some great food for thought. We've covered a lot of ground already. Data pipelines, grilling vendors, and now data transformation. But there's still more to explore. Data storage and orchestration await us. We'll be back after a quick break to dive into those, so stick around. Okay, so data storage, the next big piece of this puzzle.
You got to put that data somewhere, right?
It seems simple enough. Just pick a warehouse, dump it all in.
If only it were that easy.
Right. So what makes this tricky? What do we need to think about when choosing data storage for our lake?
Well, first off, what kind of data are we talking about? And how much of it? Terabytes, petabytes? That's going to influence your choices.
Makes sense. Where else?
Then how often do you need to access this data? Real time? Or can it wait a bit? That impacts performance, cost, all that.
So speed and efficiency matter.
And of course, security. Can't forget about that. Got to keep that data safe, comply with regulations, the whole 9 yards.
Always a top priority. Okay, so how do our contenders stack up? BigQuery, Snowflake, DataBricks, what are their data storage superpowers?
So BigQuery, it's got its own built-in storage, all tight-knit with the Google Cloud family.
Keeps things simple, I guess.
Exactly. And it's highly scalable, can handle those massive data sets without breaking a sweat.
That's what we like to hear. What about Snowflake?
Snowflake, same idea. They offer their own cloud storage, optimized for performance, scalability, the works.
So both kind of take care of it for you.
Yeah, you don't have to shop around for separate storage. It's all bundled in.
Convenient. But DataBricks, they always like to do things a little differently, right?
Oh yeah, DataBricks is all about flexibility. They can integrate with a bunch of different storage solutions like AWS S3, Azure Blob Storage.
So you got options.
Exactly. And they've also got their own data lakehouse architecture, Delta Lake, which adds a whole extra layer of data management capabilities.
Sounds fancy. So basically, there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to data storage.
Nope. Got to choose what fits your needs, your strategy, all that good stuff.
Fair enough. Okay, last but not least, data orchestration. The grand finale of data pipeline management.
The conductor of the orchestra, making sure everything plays in harmony.
Okay, but seriously, what does that actually mean? Orchestration sounds a bit intimidating.
Think of it like this. You've got all these different parts to your data pipeline, right? Your sources, your transformation tools, your storage.
Lots of moving pieces.
Exactly. Data orchestration makes sure they all work together smoothly, efficiently, no hiccups.
So it's about defining the steps, scheduling them, making sure they happen in the right order.
You got it. And handling any errors that pop up, keeping things running like a well-oiled machine.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But what tools do we use to make this magic happen? Give me the rundown.
All right, so in Google Cloud land, you've got Cloud Composer, built on Apache Airflow, lets you create these complex pipelines using, get ready for it, DAGs.
DAGs, like the geometry things.
Sort of. Directed acyclic graphs, that's what DAG stands for.
Okay, that doesn't really clarify anything.
Think of it like a flowchart for your data pipeline. It visually shows you the tasks, the order they happen in, all the dependencies.
So Cloud Composer's our conductor, following the DAG's sheet music.
Perfect analogy. And then you've got Cloud Functions, which can trigger specific tasks within the pipeline, like little helpers.
Okay, what about SnowFlake? How do they handle the orchestration game?
SnowFlake likes to keep things simple. They've got SnowFlake tasks built right into their platform.
No need to mess with external tools.
Exactly. It lets you schedule, automate tasks, the whole deal. And you can even use SQL to define those tasks. So if your team's comfortable with SQL, it's a breeze.
So Snowflake's got its own little built-in conductor, keeping everything organized.
Yep. And if you need something more advanced, you can always integrate with third-party tools.
Always good to have options.
Uh-huh.
Now, DataBricks, they got to have something super powerful up their sleeve.
Oh, you know they do.
Yeah.
Delta Live Tables, that's their big gun for automated ingestion and orchestration. And then they've got DataBricks jobs for scheduling and running those pipelines.
So many choices. Okay, but let's be real. How hard is it to learn all this stuff? Especially for folks who are more comfortable with SQL than, hardcore coding.
Well, Snowflake tasks, that's going to be the easiest. It's user-friendly, intuitive, especially if you know your way around SQL.
So that's a good starting point.
Definitely. Cloud Composer, that's a bit more technical. Got to understand Python, those digs we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get it, it's incredibly powerful, flexible.
And DataBricks, I'm guessing that's where the real challenge lies.
Yeah, DataBricks is the PhD level course. Built on Apache Spark, you need a solid understanding of data engineering to really master it.
So it's a trade-off, ease of use versus raw power and flexibility.
Exactly. Pick the tool that matches your team's skills and the complexity of your pipelines.
Okay, before we get too lost in the technical jargon, can you give me a real-world example of a DAG? Something even I can understand.
Sure. Let's say you're an e-commerce company. You want to send personalized product recommendations to your customers.
I love getting those recommendations. They always seem to know what I want.
Right. So your DAG might look like this. First, you extract customer purchase history from your database. Then you clean it up, figure out those purchase patterns.
Finding the hidden gems in the data.
Exactly. Then you use a machine learning model to generate those recommendations, tailored to each customer. And finally, you send them out via email, push notifications, whatever.
So each step depends on the one before it. You can't send recommendations before you've even generated them.
Precisely. That's the beauty of a DAG. It ensures everything happens in the right order. The data flows smoothly through the pipeline.
Okay, I'm getting it now. But why is this orchestration stuff so important? What happens if we just wing it?
Well, things can get messy fast. Without proper orchestration, your pipelines can become unreliable, prone to errors. Imagine a recipe where the steps are all out of order.
I'd rather not think about that. I'm a terrible cook.
Right. But in the data world, those errors can lead to bad insights, missed opportunities, even financial losses. It's serious stuff.
So data orchestration is our safety net, our insurance policy.
You could say that. It ensures data quality, consistency, reliability, plus it frees up your team to focus on the interesting stuff, like analyzing the insights, instead of babysitting the pipeline.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got our pipelines built, they're orchestrated, but how do we make sure they're actually running smoothly? How do we catch problems before they turn into disasters?
Monitoring, my friend. Monitoring is key. You got to keep an eye on those pipelines, especially the critical ones that drive those big decisions.
So what are our options? How do we become data pipeline detectives?
Real-time monitoring, that's your best friend. Tools like Cloud Monitoring, Datadog, New Relic, they let you track all sorts of metrics.
Metrics.
Pipeline throughput, task completion rates, error rates, all that good stuff. You can see how your pipelines are performing at a glance.
So we're basically staring at dashboards all day looking for red flags.
Pretty much. But you can also set up alerts so you don't have to be glued to the screen 24/7. If a task fails, pipeline slows down, you'll get notified.
That takes some pressure off. Anything else we should be doing?
Logging, my friend, logging. Detailed logs can tell you so much about what's happening inside your pipelines. They can help you troubleshoot issues, identify areas for improvement.
So it's like a detective's notebook full of clues.
Exactly. Don't underestimate the power of good logs.
Okay, monitoring, alerts, logging, anything else?
Visualizations. Dashboards are your friend. Visualize those key metrics, see those trends. It gives you a quick overview of pipeline health.
So it's like having a data pipeline control center, all the screens, the flashing lights.
Exactly. You want that clear picture so you can react quickly if something goes wrong.
Okay, so we've talked about all these tools and techniques, but let's bring it back to our listeners. They're senior management, not data scientists.
Mm.
Their goal is to build a data lake for NLP, machine learning, all that jazz. Ease of use is a top priority. They need something their team can adopt quickly. What would you recommend for data orchestration, considering their needs and, their sanity?
Given their focus on ease of use and their current team skills, SnowFlake Tasks seems like the perfect fit. Easy to learn, built right into SnowFlake, can handle most orchestration needs for a data set of their size.
So they wouldn't necessarily need a separate tool like Cloud Composer right away.
Probably not. SnowFlake Tasks should do the trick for now. But if their data grows, gets more complex, they might want to reconsider down the line.
Always good to have a plan B. Okay, we've covered a lot today. Ingestion, transformation, storage, now orchestration. Feeling pretty good about this.
We're making progress. They're well on their way to becoming data pipeline pros.
Exactly. But we're not done yet. In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to compare BigQuery, SnowFlake, and DataBricks head-to-head.
The ultimate showdown.
We'll weigh the pros and cons, consider costs, scalability, ease of implementation, all that good stuff. So stick around, folks. The best is yet to come. Okay, folks, it's the final round of our data platform showdown.
BigQuery, SnowFlake, DataBricks, one will emerge victorious.
But first, we got to break down the categories, really see how they stack up.
Right, got to make sure our listeners are armed with the knowledge.
Exactly. So first up, flexibility. How easily can you customize these platforms, make them fit your specific needs?
Well, BigQuery and DataBricks, they're pretty strong contenders in this department.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
BigQuery, with all those Google Cloud integrations, the power of SQL, it's got a lot of room for customization.
So if you've got some, unique requirements, BigQuery can handle it.
Most likely, yeah. And DataBricks, built on Apache Spark, it's all about open source. Flexibility is baked in.
If you need to go off the beaten path, DataBricks is your go-to.
Exactly. Now, SnowFlake, it's powerful, no doubt, but it's a bit more structured, opinionated, might not be as flexible for those really specific niche use cases.
So if you need something really out there, SnowFlake might not be the best fit.
Right. It's like BigQuery and DataBricks are the agile acrobats. Snowflake's more grounded.
Love that analogy. Okay, next category, raw power, processing muscle. Which platform can handle those massive workloads without breaking a sweat?
Honestly, this one's a close call. All three are pretty beastly when it comes to processing power.
Oh, so it's a three-way tie.
Pretty much. BigQuery, no problem handling huge data sets, complex queries. SnowFlake, designed for performance, scalability. It can chew through data like nobody's business.
Impressive. And DataBricks, well, with Apache Spark under the hood.
It's a monster. If you need to do some serious data crunching, DataBricks is your best friend.
Okay, so for sheer processing power, they're all winners. But let's talk about something that's really important for our listeners, the learning curve. Not everyone's a data scientist. Not everyone wants to spend months learning a new tool.
Right, got to keep it realistic. And in this category, SnowFlake definitely takes the cake.
Easy to learn, even for folks who aren't, super technical.
Exactly. It's designed to be user-friendly, intuitive, especially if you're already familiar with SQL.
So SnowFlake's like the friendly tutor everyone can keep up.
Good way to put it. Now, BigQuery, it's a bit more challenging, but still manageable.
Like, you need to put in the effort, but it's worth it.
Right. You got to understand some Google Cloud concepts, some data engineering principles, but it's not rocket science.
Okay, so BigQuery's the, challenging but rewarding professor.
Exactly. And then you've got DataBricks, which is
intense.
Intense is an understatement. It's like the boot camp of data platforms. Apache Spark, Python, Scala, it's a whole different world.
If you want to master DataBricks, you got to be committed.
Absolutely. But once you do, you could do amazing things.
Okay, so learning curve, SnowFlake's the easiest. BigQuery is a bit more challenging. DataBricks is the expert level option. Now, let's talk money, the thing everyone cares about, cost.
Ah, the million-dollar question.
Right. So how do these platforms stack up when it comes to pricing?
It's tricky, no easy answers. BigQuery, you pay for what you use each query, so it can be really cost-effective if you're smart about optimization.
Got to be efficient with your queries.
Exactly. SnowFlake, also pay per use, but it can get pricey if you're running heavy workloads.
You got to keep an eye on those bills.
Right. And DataBricks, similar model, pay per use, but the final cost depends on your infrastructure, your usage patterns, all that.
So there's no clear winner in the cost category. It really depends on your specific needs, how you use the platform.
Yep. Got to do your homework, figure out what makes sense for your budget.
Good advice. Okay, moving on to something super important, stability and reliability. You don't want your data pipelines crashing in the middle of a critical task.
Right, downtime is the enemy. And thankfully, all three platforms are pretty solid in this department.
So no need to worry about things breaking down constantly.
Not really. They're all built on robust cloud infrastructure. They've been tested, proven. They can handle the pressure.
That's reassuring. Okay, community support, resources, that kind of stuff. If you run into a problem, you want to know there's help available.
Absolutely. And you're in luck. All three platforms have thriving communities, tons of documentation, online forums, all that.
So no matter which platform you choose, you're not alone.
Exactly. BigQuery, it's got the whole Google Cloud ecosystem behind it. SnowFlake's got a rapidly growing community really focused on customer support. And DataBricks, well, it's got the open source community, which is always super helpful.
Okay, last category, implementation time. How quickly can you get these platforms up and running, start seeing results?
Well, Snowflake, it's known for being quick to deploy, cloud native, easy to use. You can be up and running in no time.
So if you're impatient, Snowflake's your best bet.
Pretty much. BigQuery is also pretty fast, especially if you're already on Google Cloud. DataBricks, it's a bit more involved. More configuration options, might take a bit longer.
So speed versus flexibility, another trade-off.
Exactly. But hey, we've covered a lot today, right? From pipelines to platforms. We've given our listeners a lot to think about.
We're practically data experts now.
Well, almost. But seriously, they're equipped to make that big decision. Choose the platform that's right for them.
Remember, folks, no one-size-fits-all answer here. It's all about your needs, your priorities, your long-term goals.
And hey, if you're still feeling lost, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Consultants, online communities, there's a ton of resources out there.
Data can be intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. All right, folks, that's a wrap for today's deep dive. We explored those data pipelines, compared the big three platforms, BigQuery, Snowflake, DataBricks, weighed the pros and cons.
We even threw in some fun analogies along the way.
Of course, we like to keep things interesting. But remember, the data world's constantly changing, new tools, new technologies. It's a never-ending journey.
So stay curious, keep learning, and who knows, maybe we'll see you back here for another deep dive soon.
Until then, happy data exploring.